organization out there called Education Spring. And Education Spring, we didn't really know about this until we worked with Pocahontas County. We have a registration number with them, and they will carry your advertisement throughout the country for about 60 days, and it's only $199. So we pay for the registration fee. So if you want to go with Education Spring, I'd highly recommend that also. Again, I never knew about that group, never knew about that organization until Pocahontas County brought it to my attention. Seems like a fantastic way to go. You get a little bit more broader exposure that way from people who may be out of state or anything who may want to consider this position. So anyway, that's the 2 ways of advertising. Other ways of advertising, of course, is getting your notice out to all the superintendents and the regional directors. And let's just be frank with each other. There is a network among superintendents, and they will let each other know when there's a position available. Okay. And they will have great sway sometimes. And I have to be honest about this, and I'm going to be direct. They have great sway sometimes in the number of people who do apply and who do apply. Okay, who do apply. They have great sway sometimes. So I just have to be blunt about that. So keep that under your hat, although I've mentioned it publicly. I tell that to every board I work with, and I do run into that. Sometimes good, and then sometimes not as well. Okay, now we get into the application form. This would be online. This is what would be online. It's under tab number 4. Now, I tend to think the best thing about the application form that we've been able to do is we've been able to customize it so everyone fills out the same form, you get it in the same manner, the same information. Now it is cumbersome to fill out, I do have to commit. Some people feel like it's too much trouble to fill out, but if you're interested in the position, I think you'll take the time to fill it out. It kind of works that way. And you get into their experience, their references, you get into their educational levels and degrees, background checks, which we do very thoroughly. And by the way, we don't really do background checks until you get down to the 3 or 4 people you're most interested in, because in West Virginia, if you're already in the system, essentially, that's not really as much of a requisite as it is if you're out of state or something of that nature. And then now we come over to page 6 of this application, and then you get into some assignments that you'll need to do with the board. What we have done over the years, and I think this works out pretty well, we make it so that when you do the application, you come up with 5 questions you would like to ask initially of all the people who want to apply for the position. There's 5 questions you come up with as a board. Now, they need to be general questions. They don't need to be very specific, like what would you do with a certain program or something like that. But they need to be questions like, what is the role of the school board in your opinion, the role of the superintendent, what is your managerial style, are you used to manage, in some boards we have to say, what is your experience in managing a school board with declining enrollment? And these are the questions Mason County came up with. Let's just look at these. The first one was, in a perfect society, describe how a student should be educated in public schools. Pretty good question. Pretty good question, I think. Then what are the issues facing Lincoln County schools? They'll need to do a little bit of homework on that unless they already know. They'll need to do some homework on that. What are the issues facing your school district? And if they're good candidates, they will have done that anyway. They'll go to your website, they'll go to the state board, they'll get the data, they'll find out what the issues are. They'll talk to people in the communities and things like that. Then Mason County had some certain issues they had, like how would you increase parental involvement? And then this one, says, when faced with controversial issues in which you disagree with the board, how would you respond? Good question, very good question. And then some boards ask, why should we employ you from among all the applicants we may have? And one board one time said, give us one reason we should not employ you. Okay, so there are different ways to look at these questions. That was a trick question, very trick question, because nobody, well, anyway, you didn't understand that. And then, of course, this shows you how to turn in the application form and that sort of thing. And we have Dreamcatcher that does our web publication. They're the people that you contact if you're filling this out and you have any questions. You can't get it sent in right or whatever. The Dreamcatcher walks you through that part of the process. Now, once we get the application under tab number 5, this is a simple, very, very simple thing here. It's kind of a matrix. In Mason County, they had 7 candidates, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 7 candidates. They use this as a board. Once you get your applications in, then individually, not collectively, but individually, you fill this out. Once you read over the application forms and you determine how well or how thoroughly the candidate answered these various questions. Then you come together as a board, probably in a special meeting, could be attached to a regular meeting. You come together as a board and you compare notes and you begin to screen down who you would like to have as a superintendent finalist. In other words, if you have 7 applications and you need to have 3, then you screen down to maybe the 3 or 4 that you would like to interview. You can interview all 7 if you want. I don't recommend that. There are boards that do that. I know one board that interviewed 11 people one time, but that's their different style of doing things. So I recommend if you get 7 or 8 applications, you come up with 3 or 4 that you're serious about. And then you do this little matrix and this begins the screening process. How we do this is, when you get your applications, I said I would probably deliver them to the board office here. When you get your applications, this will be in the application form, and then you'll meet a later day or maybe in conjunction with a regular meeting, and then you'll go through your screening to screen down the number of people that you want. And by the way, this little instrument, it's only to get the discussion going. Likely there will be discussion, but this gets everyone to start out with on the same page, and it works pretty well. Now we get into a part that I think is kind of exciting, but you all have to be united about before you do it. All right, this is the community involvement part. Community involvement, and this is under tab number 6. It's all over the map, actually. Some boards say, we had a board one time that said, why would we need community involvement? We're responsible and elected, we'll do it on our own, and they did. Okay, and it worked out very well. In fact, their superintendent's been there 10 years, okay, so that worked out well. It really doesn't affect the longevity of things so much as it affects getting people involved in the process with you. This is the key element here, with you having control of the process. This is not a meeting of the board or of the public to choose a superintendent. If you have community involvement, it's to get their input, to give that input to you in regard to how they may feel about the qualities of the particular candidates that you recommend for them to take a look at. Now, the most sophisticated way that we've done this occurred in Ohio County. They did a focus group, and a focus group is kind of it was a microcosm, as of their community. It took place on the Saturday. They brought all these people in. I think they had 15 or 16 people that represented their community. At least they felt like, the board, well, the consulting firm actually chose them, not the board. And they provided the county board with a lot of information about issues facing the school system in Ohio County, which that board then took that information and they turned it into questions that they asked the candidates who were for the superintendent position. So that's a pretty sophisticated way of doing it. That involves demographics, it involves getting the right people to